We are now about 8 days from the release of Season 4. As we approach the beginning of the season, we do something special today, which is talking about the specs to play in Season 4, the specs to pick in Season 4, but not your usual. We're not just gonna say, hey guys, listen, Mr. Vermonk is gonna be the flavor of the month healer, Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be the flavor of the month tank, and Red Paladin is going to be the flavor of the month DPS. That's it, the video is over, that's what you should play, goodbye. Instead, what if you don't like any of these specs? What if they annoy you? You don't like their rotation, or more simply, you are a hipster who just refuses to play flavor of the month specs or doesn't want to be associated as a filthy reroller in a popular spec. So we're looking at today the 3 specs that you should play in Season 4 that are not meta right now, that might become meta in Season 4, or maybe might still have a reason to be played in Season 4. So we have to start first with the list of the played roles, which is of course the tank. And the suggestion for the non-meta tank to play in Season 4 is Guardian Druid. Now, when it comes to tanks in Mythic Plus, one of the strongest, if not the strongest things you need for a tank to be a meta 1 is just how big of a pool can you have. How many mobs can you group together at once, and can you actually stay alive when you pull that many? That is the reason why Vengeance and their double crowd control sigils are so strong right now and will continue to be strong in Season 4. But the second best, the one that right below Vengeance can actually go for those kind of pulls, is Guardian. Now, in Season 4, Guardian is changing their tier set. They decided to move back to Season 2 to fill themselves with copium, wishing that Season 4 went just as well as Season 2 went for them when they had this tier set. No, obviously that tier set since then has been nerfed by nerfing Guardian Druid over time, so this is not going to be nearly as strong as it was back then, but it is still going to help them in those kind of pulls. The heal over time, but more importantly the 15% max HP, as well as more thrash damage and more thrash rage generation are all going to help Guardian Druid along those kind of big pulls. They are still, at the end of the day, a spec that brings one of the more wanted things in a Mythic Plus key, which is a combatress. That is still very valuable when assembling a group, so that overall can be quite the solid pick for Season 4. Also, you get to change something, right? You get to at least change the tier set, as part of the complaints of Season 4 is that, well, nothing really is changing. We're not getting a fated affix for your raid bosses, we're not getting a fated affix for our Mythic Plus keys. At the very least, your tier set is changing when it comes to Guardian. So this would be the pick of choice if you hate going for flavor of the month rerolls. Guardian is the way to go for Season 4. Then we talk about healers. And again, in the healer category, we do have a pretty stable flavor of the month that we have had for most of this season, which is Mr. Vermonk. Mr. Vermonk is currently topping the play rate of both the Raid, where they are the most played healer, as well as Mythic Plus, where they are the most played healer. But our pick of choice for the healer role in Season 4 is going to be Resto Shaman. Now, why is this? Now, already in terms of differences, Resto Shaman is, alongside Guardian Druid, a spec that is also changing their tier set for Season 4. Now, this is not perhaps nearly as exciting, since they are going back to their Season 1 tier set, which is a completely passive tier set which impacts you in pretty much no way. I guess we can say it does impact you because now you no longer have to play around your current tier set. You no longer have to play around your Tidal Reservoir. You no longer have to play around aiming your Riptide at the targets you healed with direct healing to try to spread your Riptides to more players. It's also quite poor, very poor in Mythic Plus. This Season 1 tier set makes it much better for them for just straight up more powerful healing in all content, because you just crit for more and your crits do more healing, period. So it's definitely more applicable in all sorts of content. What might perhaps raise the value of Resto Shaman a little bit is, of course, the question around what can your party bring together as a group in a Mythic Plus key, and one of the requirements, much like we said about the requirements of a combatress, which is a benefit for a Guardian Druid, the other thing is, of course, Bloodlust that is being brought by a Resto Shaman. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, but hunters can bring Bloodlust, and so can mages, and so can evokers. That's where perhaps more of the value of Resto Shaman might be coming from in Season 4. Right now, at the very least, when it comes to the Mythic Plus popularity of specs, well, of course, Preservation is already lower down, one of the lowest brought healers in Mythic Plus. And if we are going for Resto Shaman, of course, you will be the healer in Mythic Plus. Then you have Augmentation Evoker, which has also progressively gotten less and less played throughout the season. We have very little presence of Hunters, in particular Marksmanship and Survival in Mythic Plus. The only one possibly could be Beast Mastery. Devastation Evoker is nowhere to be seen at the moment, but what could be the biggest hurdle for a Resto Shaman's Bloodlust power could be Mage, right, as usual. As per contract, Blizzard must keep at least one mage spec popular in a season. However, while Arcane and Frost Mage are not really doing too well right now, Fire Mage has also been slowly getting less played towards the end of this season. In fact, strictly in terms of numbers, they are being less played right now than a Resto Shaman. So, you might be going for the Bloodlust being brought in Mythic Plus by a Shaman now in Season 4 over a Mage. If Fire Mage continues to go down in play rate when groups start assembling their composition for Mythic Plus and start looking for a Bloodlust, then the value of a Resto Shaman might continue to rise. That's why we are putting it as a possible hipster niche pick for Season 4. Their Bloodlust possibly becoming much more valuable in Mythic Plus and even their tier set changing, making it also stronger in Mythic Plus, whereas now their current tier set is mostly just more powerful for the raid only. Then the last of our picks is in the DPS category. Of course, this one being the largest category, it also has the largest possible options for hipster picks. It could be one of the DK specs, perhaps a Windwalker Monk, maybe one of the Warriors, one of the Warlocks, one of the Druids. So, if we exclude the already popular choices at the very least right now towards the end of this season, being Shadow Priest, being Red Paladin, being Fire Mage, even Outlaw Rogue, or Havoc Demon Hunter, or Beast Mastery Hunter, which continues to be popular despite not being, super picked at a very high key level, our pick then would have to go to Fury Warrior. So, Fury Warrior completes the trio of specs that are going to be changing their tier set in Season 4. This one is, I guess, more game changing than the previous two, because this one does put you to play much more around your Bloodthirst as opposed to now where you play much more around your Odin's Fury cooldown as a Fury Warrior. So it might slightly change your button presses, mostly being fewer Odin's Fury uses as a Fury Warrior, as well as more rage generation and more damage with your Bloodthirst. The thing for Fury is that they have been doing pretty good damage in Mythic Plus. As mentioned, if we take out all of the more popular picks in Mythic Plus, the one right below them in terms of power is Fury Warrior, which has been contending, for example, with Havoc Demon Hunter, a spot in the top 3 damage dealers for melee DPS in Mythic Plus, for example. That's not all, because to those who it might concern, Fury Warrior is also one of the higher damage dealers in the raid right now. They are, for example, top damage right now on Farak. They are in the top 5 of the damage of Smolderon. On Tindral, there are way more adds. They're not nearly as good, but they are still ending up in the top half of damage, even in an ad-heavy encounter. So their damage has been very solid throughout the season and only slightly outshadowed by a couple more picks in Mythic Plus in particular. But of course we can't just give the easy answer, we can't just say Lamau, just play red, so Fury is another good option. Don't forget, by the way, that the legendaries are going to be usable and upgradable in Season 4, which means you will get access to a very high item level legendary weapon very early on. As a Fury Warrior, no RNG involved, no possibly waiting for 3 or 4 months to get the weapon on, so possibly the spike of damage of these kind of specs, these two-handed weapon type of specs, might be spiking a little bit higher than expected or than intended at the beginning of Season 4. Yes, we agree, yes, technically that also favors Red Paladin, but again, not counting the already popular spec, Fury is another good option. It would also help Fury Warrior greatly if we ended up having a Guardian Druid and a Resto Shaman as the main picks for Mythic Plus. Why? Well, at this point, you should know already what I mean. The reason why it would help Fury Warrior is that if Guardian Druid is meta instead of Vengeance, and if Resto Shaman is meta instead of Mistweaver, then you have the Combatress and the Bloodlust being brought by your tank and your healer. What does this mean? This means that now your Combatress and your Bloodlust don't have to be brought by a DPS, which suddenly means Fury Warrior has 3 options available to be brought instead of 1. If Vengeance is the meta tank and Mistweaver is the meta healer, then it means 1 spot out of 3 of your DPS must be taken by the Bloodlust. The second spot out of 3 of your DPS must be taken by the Combatress, which would basically leave every other DPS spec with only 1 spot available in your ideal Mythic Plus comp. So it's also actually a big wish for many of the DPS specs that specs like Resto Shaman or even Preservation Evoker or Resto Druid or Guardian Druid or Blood Decay become the meta specs as tanks and healers, because they do bring the very valuable Combatress or the very valuable Bloodlust, which would not make it necessary to be brought by a DPS. So these are our 3 picks for Mythic Plus of the, I guess, underplayed, underdog, hipster specs that could be making a run to become good, to decent, to possibly even meta at the beginning of Season 4. Obviously, as mentioned, we have much more easy answers if you are straight up looking for the flavor of the month easy choice, so we went for something a little bit more underground, a little bit more alternative for this video. So, for today, on this Monday, we are leaving each other with this prophecy of playable specs in Season 4. We will see how many of these end up actually being played, but for now, we are leaving each other. We are starting the goodbyes by thanking all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help, alongside everyone who is supporting for free. Liking and commenting down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel itself, are still a very good show of support. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, luckily, after a 28°C day, this upcoming week is gonna be cloudy and rainy and chill, just the way I like it.